30th OpenGL tutorial, and in this tutorial I promise you I'm gonna teach you about vertex shader. Vertex shader is what? The vertex shader is one of the shaders that are programmable by people like us. Modern OpenGL require that we at least set up a vertex and fragment shader if we want to do some rendering. So we will briefly introduce shaders and configure two very simple shaders for drawing our first triangle. In the next tutorial we'll discuss shader in more details. The first thing we need to do is write the vertex shader in the shader language GLSL, which means OpenGL shading language, and then compile this shader so we can use it in our application. Below you'll find the source code of a very basic vertex shader in GLSL. Yeah. Okay, as you can see, GLSL looks similar to C. Each shader begins with a declaration of its version. Since OpenGL 3.3 and higher, the version numbers of GLSL match the version of OpenGL. GLSL version 4.2.0 correspond to OpenGL version 4.2. For example, we also explicitly mention where we are using core profile function, so we give the version which is 3.0 and we want to use the core profile, which is this here. So next we want to declare all the inputs. We also mention we are using the core profile from here, which is the core. Next we will declare all the input vectors attributes in the vertex shader with the in keyword. Right now we only care about position data. We only need a single vertex attribute. GLSL has a vector data type that contains 1 to 4 floats based on its postfix digit. Since each vertex has a 3D coordinate, we create a vector 3 input vec, which is vec3 input here, input variable with the name a pose, which is a brief of a position. So we also specifically set the location of the input variable via layout location, and you'll later see that why we're going to need that. So we give the version of the GLSL and the core profile, we set a layout, then we create a variable called a pose, which is an input variable of three floats. So we are going to write this in our code just now, and actually GLSL is just like C, so we'll need to put them as a string so that we'll be able to use them in our application. Later on we'll go more advanced and easy way to use GLSL. So for now, let's write this source code in our program. We can write it instead of copying it. So next tutorial we'll write the vector shader in our program. So don't forget to subscribe and share. See you in the next tutorial. Bye. Okay, core profile, layout.